So last night's game of the night was easily Spurs versus Thunder. The Spurs, man, they seem to have the Thunder's number. They just keep beating them this year. And last night's game wasn't even close. And the really impressive thing to me is Wemby did not have a good game. He only had like 12 points, 5 rebounds. He had that highlight where he gave Chet the old Derrick Henry stiff arm and then windmilled it in the lane. He does not like Chet. They asked him after the game if there's a rivalry between him and Chet, and he said there's no rivalry, but it's very clear Wemby does not like Chet. I don't know what Chet did to him. I don't know what the backstory is there. I mean, obviously they've been compared their whole careers because they're the same age range. They're kind of the same player where they're tall, they're lanky. They're not really fives. They're better as power forwards. They can dribble, they can shoot. I get the comparisons. Obviously, Wemby is a lot better than Chet, so maybe Chet just plays with an extra chip on his shoulder when he goes against him. Or, I mean, maybe Wemby plays with an extra chip on his shoulder because it's clear that Chet does not return that same energy. Chet continuously gets bitched by Wemby whenever they play. But like I was saying, the most impressive part about that game, if I'm a Spurs fan last night, is that it wasn't a game where Wemby carried you. He had a very average game, like I said, 12 points, 5 rebounds. It was that backcourt, man. I cannot believe that they got Dylan Harper, they got Stephon Castle, and they got De'Aaron Fox all on the same team. There's been a lot of talk lately about like what the NBA should do with tanking. They had the meeting where they're trying to figure out what to do with tanking. I always have hot takes when it comes to this. I think the lottery is fucked. I think that it robs the teams at the bottom of a chance of ever really getting out of it because tanking does not work when you have the lottery. And I'm not against tanking at all. I think the only way you can get out of the bottom if you're one of those teams is getting lucky in the draft and drafting a superstar. Free agency isn't really a thing anymore. Trades aren't even really a thing when you're at the bottom of the league because these stars, you know, like Giannis, when he's demanding a trade, he's not just going to accept a trade anywhere. Like the Jazz can't throw together some magical package for him and get him. He's going to be like, I'm not going to Utah. Same with, you know, Charlotte, Washington, all the bottom of the barrel teams. Their only chance to get better is through the draft. So I'm always saying, get rid of the lottery. If you have the worst record in the league, you get the #1 pick. You know, just order it that way. That way the talent gets a little more dispersed throughout the league. You set up a rule where, like, if you get the #1 pick, like, for instance, the Mavs got the #1 pick last year. So then this year, if they're back in that same circumstance, the highest they can finish is 5th. So if you have the worst record in the league and the next year you come back and you still have the worst record in the league, then the highest you can get is the 5th pick the next year. I think that would curtail a lot of this stuff. And I also think we just need to do away with pick protections. They're way too advanced. They're way too complex. It should be like you can protect it top 3 and that's it. Because that would also solve a lot of these tanking issues. A lot of these teams, these bad teams, they've had picks that they're waiting to convey from these guys. You know, the Jazz, for instance, when they traded Gobert and they traded Donovan Mitchell, a lot of those picks, there were so many protections on them they didn't necessarily convey. And it would motivate these teams that do have these draft picks or are thinking about sending these draft picks out there. It would motivate them to stay good for longer. Look at Philly last year. That pick was top 6 protected. If you live in a world where you can only protect it top 3, they can't bottom out the way they did the second half of that year in order to try to keep their pick. They pretty much gotta gun it and try to make that pick as bad as possible for who they're gonna send it to. So those are just my ideas when it comes to tanking. But the reason I bring this up when I'm discussing Spurs versus Thunder is because the Spurs, more than anybody, have benefited from this fucking lottery system. They got the Wemby pick. The next year they get Stephon Castle. They leapfrogged a couple other teams to get that #2 pick. And then last year they leapfrogged a bunch of teams to get the #2 pick. Dylan Harper, you know, the Jazz got screwed, the Nets got screwed, the Wizards got screwed, the Hornets got screwed. All these teams got screwed. Granted, the Hornets got Con Knipple, so they'll be okay. But still, they leapfrogged a bunch of these teams, and now they've built this super team that can really take on the OKC Thunder and really make them pay. So it's going to be a great matchup, OKC versus the Spurs. Every time they play, it seems like OKC just has the length and the athleticism with their guards, with their wings to try to keep up with OKC. And then Wemby just plays with that chip on his shoulder. So that's something where I'm really hoping we get that in the playoffs because that's going to go 7 games and it's going to be hard fought. And we're going to see how San Antonio responds to their first postseason. Keep in mind, man, the postseason, totally different than the regular season. We always see these young teams, they kill guys in the regular season, they get to the postseason, and they stiffen up. Look at the Houston Rockets last year. Look at the OKC Thunder the year before that. It's just a different ball game. So I loved that game last night. I really look forward to watching those two teams. That should have been a Christmas game, to be honest. The league, they kind of dropped the ball not scheduling that on Christmas. But The other thing I obviously got to talk about, since I'm a Bulls fan, is they got that win last night. And Josh Giddey, a lot of people got mad at me yesterday because during the game I tweeted out that Josh Giddey has like the least consequential triple doubles that I've ever seen. And what I mean by that is a game like yesterday, you're watching that game, I was watching the game, I'm paying attention. Granted, I'm not tallying the stats by myself, but just watching the game, I'm like, you know, Josh Giddey, he's not being that good today. He's missing some shots at the rim. He's turning the ball over all the time. It doesn't really seem like he's controlling, dominating this game. And then all of a sudden, the announcers are like, Josh Giddey, another triple-double, 19, 11, and 11. And I was like, man, just watching this game, I would never have guessed that he put up a triple-double, that he had that kind of control of the game. Whereas you watch like Luka gets like a 30, 10, and 10. And it's not just the scoring, but it's the way that he's mastering the game, controlling the pace. Like, I've never seen a Luka triple-double where watching it, I was surprised that he had a triple-double. Every game that Luka gets a triple-double, I'm like, wow, he's controlling this game. He's dominating that game. Same thing with LeBron. Jokic is a little different because we just expect a triple-double from him so much that when he gets, like, he just dominates every game that he plays. So same thing with Russell Westbrook back in the day. He was on some bad OKC Thunder teams and he dragged them to some wins and he would put up triple-doubles. And they were never games where we were like, wow, I'm surprised Russ has a triple-double here. I feel like he wasn't playing that well. They were always games where it was like, damn, Russ is going balls to the wall. He is controlling this game. He's doing whatever he can to make sure the Thunder win this game. And I just don't feel the same way watching Josh Giddey collect these triple-doubles. So that's why I say they seem to be like the least consequential triple-doubles I have ever seen. And it may just be a thing where the triple-double is so common now with the pace these guys play with and how generous they are giving out assists. Keep in mind, back in like the 80s and 90s, if you passed it to a guy and he took 2 or 3 dribbles, that was no longer an assist. Where today it seems like guys get to take like 5 dribbles and you still get credited with the assist. So the Bulls, they got to win. They're firmly in that 10 seed. They've won, 4 in a row now, so they're getting a little closer to 500. They're 13 and 15 after a 5-0 start. They're just going to be a mid team. They're going to be a play-in team. I'm sure them and the Hawks are going to meet in the play-in again because it's always the Hawks, the Bulls, the Raptors, the Heat in the play-in. They're just destined for it. So I'm not getting my hopes up as a Bulls fan. If you are a Bulls fan and you're getting your hopes up, man, more power to you. You have a spirit that is uncrushable. My spirit has been crushed long ago. So